It's a quiet day here on the Bubba Dove, August 29th, 2023. However, 2 short years ago, same date, different time, all hell was breaking loose in Terrebonne Parish. What we've learned on these floodgates is that a reverse head can cause havoc on the system and put Houma in harm's way. What have we learned from Hurricane Zeta and Hurricane Ida concerning a reverse flow of water on this floodgate? All right, Tony, let's start with you. Naturally, 2 years since Hurricane Ida. God, we learned so much from Ida, but we can go back to Zeta and start talking about what we learned. We've learned from every storm, I should say, but we learned about reverse heads from Zeta and Ida. But we're standing on the Bubba Dove, just talking in general about how far we've come as a parish with flood control. I was telling y'all I interviewed Donald Landry in 1984. He was talking about saltwater intrusion. He was talking about sea level rise. He was talking about so many different things that affect us in this area.
Yep.
We've come a long way, haven't we?
We've come a long way, Mark. You know, we've learned a lot in the process. You know, all these different floodgates that we have in place right now. You know, I think we've learned, you know, how to close them and when to close them, right? The hydrology has changed completely since we started putting this levee system in and putting these floodgates in place. And who would ever thought that we would have almost a 9-foot surge on the inside of the system? Lake Boudreaux moving over to the corner over there by Petit Caillou. And of course, this floodgate was damaged. Petit Caillou was damaged. We have them repaired, and we're prepared for the next storm. You know, we're, you know, just touching this up. We're going to 15 foot on all the levees that we're at 12 right now, roughly, and we're going to 15 right now. We're also trying to finish the west end of the project around Miners Canal, and we're working hard to get that done. We're working with the Corps on that right now, and I don't think I'm gonna get into all the particulars with that, but it looks like we're making a lot of headway. We're completing this project.
Mr. Dove, you're holding the Houma Navigation Canal lock. Before we talk about that, if I could sort of spin off what Tony was saying, and I know you as a parish president have always said, no parish president's going to be perfect. You got to learn from some of the things that happen. Every storm teaches us something different. So when we go back to Lake Boudreaux and some of the events that happened there, y'all have things in progress that's going to knock down some of that water coming in, probably as much as 5 or 6 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, boy, and remember this. In 2019, when Hurricane Barry came in from the south, it pushed 9 foot of water against our system. 9 foot of water. The same thing with Rita that flooded 11,000 homes. With Rita, flooded only 11 homes with Hurricane Barry. But it came Ida 2 years ago and had a reverse head and created its own waves and tidal surge within our system and actually pushed the Bubba Dove gate 70 feet out, 100 feet out. And so that we learned a lesson with, and of course the Corps has taken steps to alleviate that. And the one thing about the lock system is we're out for bids right now for this $300 million lock system, which we started 11 years ago design, putting the money together. And as you know, this is BP fine money. It had to go through the U.S. Treasury and the Restore Act. And with this, you would just open this lock system and let the reverse head out. So this gate was designed with the intent of working with this lock system. Who would have ever dreamed we'd get we were clocking winds of 185 miles an hour coming from the north, and so you learn like a 9-foot surge from the south is really not a big problem for us anymore. And then we learned that we had a new problem. It called a reverse head, but everything's in place. The EOC, look, I want to give a shout out to my staff, all my department heads. They all got together, the levee board, the federal agencies, the state agencies, out of the EOC was really coordination, and it all came together for Ida, and that's what everyone trained for.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology, and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights. As we talk about, we're pretty high off the water here, but I remember seeing those photos during Ida. How high did that water get?
Well,
right here on the backside?
The water was splashing over the floodgate.
Yeah.
And the floodgate's plus 18. And it was splashing over it. And just to show you the strength of a hurricane, never underestimate them, never underestimate their direction. And even the state CPRA learned of a reverse head. I mean, these gates are built for about a 3-foot, maybe a 4-foot reverse head. And without any gates to allow the water out, unless it was learned, but everything still worked. The system worked. And of course, with the parish, we've added 30 pump stations, 2 lock systems, and this is going to be the 3rd lock system. When you're going to come into Terrebonne Parish in about 3 years, when this lock system is complete, you will come through to Terrebonne Parish through a lock system. And so no matter what the water is in the Gulf of Mexico, the elevation, you can come and go out of Terrebonne Parish. We're 15 years ahead of any other seaboard community.
Yeah, when we saw those photos of the reverse head that was circulating, at first I said, no way, it's got to be photoshopped. And then we found out it was true. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the reality of it.
It was a shocking reality.
Yeah.
You realize that barge is full of water, sitting on the bottom of some pilings and seals, and it moved that barge, I don't know, 70 or 80 feet out. Yeah. And it bent the secure pins on it, which Tony and Reggie came back and put larger pins, to make sure it doesn't break loose. Of course, the structure can hold it. It's just the pins gave way and it pushed it out.
Let me turn to Reggie. It's ironic, Reggie. 2 years later, we're watching dolphin and redfish come up to the top here. It's a beautiful day.
Right.
But, I mean, just the amount of things we've learned, but also the amount of rumors that y'all have had to quash over 2 years. And I have to ask this because I see some things on social media sometimes and I'm going, who the hell has that much time on their hand where they could come up with some kind of nonsense like this? So I know you say y'all don't put a whole lot of time and effort into rumors, but rumors can throw people off, can throw a community off. So you got to almost sort of handle it, but keep the focus in mind, don't you?
That's right. We got to keep the focus on protecting the people. I mean, I did a presentation about a week and a half ago to CPRA when they had a meeting in Houma. The local investment, state and local investment of what we spent over here adds up to $1.2 billion if you include what the parish government has done with the other 2 locks, raising the parish levies and improving the internal redundant levies and the big pump stations and Bayou Black. So, and then we spent about $600 million, half federal, half state, half local. Then you add the total cost of this lock with all three phases is about $400 million. That's $1.2 billion of a non-federal investment into a federal system before the federal government shows up. Now, that because of what we built, the federal government has $440 million, and we expect $28 million of federal money later this year. So if you add that all up together, that's $1.6 billion, primarily just in the last 15 to 20 years. $1.6 billion. Had we not invested all this in the taxpayers and getting the confidence of the taxpayers, we would still be at ground zero. I mean, I've heard rumors floating around that we should have just waited on the Corps. We'd have drowned. That is absolutely false. The only reason the Congress is able to appropriate money now to us is because of the successes we've done, because of the strength we gain on the first lift of these levees and these floodgates. They now factored all this into the equation and lowered the cost of Morganza from $10 to $3 billion. And that's the reason why, because of our successes. Otherwise, we'd still, I honestly believe that had we not made that investment, you would probably have 20-25% less people living in Terrebonne Parish, and our economy would begin to die on the vine.
Let me ask Tony something.
Well, and let me just add on to that. You know, from a cost-benefit ratio, $10 billion when that 100-year storm certification went up after Katrina, and we went from 800 million cost to 10 billion. That's when we started moving forward. We said from a cost-benefit ratio, there's no way that we're going to get the feds to come in and spend money on this. It just didn't make sense from that ratio. And so that's when we started moving forward. We figured we better get after it and do something. And we had tax dollars, and we had the state matches. Yeah. So that's why we moved forward at a rapid pace at that point.
All three of y'all spoke at Time for Action, but Tony, I remember clearly that comment you made, and you basically put the feds on notice that we don't need you, and we're moving without you.
Let there be no mistake. We are going to build those levees with Washington or without. So Washington, send us the money, and we'll build the levees, with or without you.
We've been talking about the same problem for at least over 20 years, since I've been doing broadcasts on HTV. Some of you in the audience have been talking about it for 40 or 50 years. So now it's time to get the levees built.
But isn't that what it took for them to really see that skin in the game? We use it all the time. Before the federal money started coming in, we had to show them we had skin in the game.
You know, we'd still be sitting here. What we've done has brought the feds into this, as Reggie was saying. You know, and we didn't wait around. And, you know, for those people that talked about waiting, I bet you a lot of these people down these bayous right here would love to hear with those people being in charge waiting for the Corps or waiting for anybody. I'd like to think that Terrebonne and Lafourche are a little more resilient than that and move forward and try to protect themselves and pull their own bootstraps up, which is what we did. I'm proud of that. The people of Terrebonne and Lafourche should be very proud of what they've done instead of just waiting around. And that's why we're fortunate enough now to have the feds here and helping us, you know, with the $380 million. We feel comfortable. We might be able to even put those floodgates in the intercoastal and help close our system off as we're going to 15 feet and finishing up on the west.
Before I hand the mic back to Mr. Dove, let me ask you something, Tony, about Mr. Dove and the team and Reggie and all them. You know, we joke a lot off camera. You know, we joke the fact that Gordy goes home to his family and he's probably got a CFS monitor in his bedroom to monitor the water coming through all the floodgates. But there's some truth to that, because he's always looking at his phone and checking the water. This morning he told us how many thousands of gallons are coming through here. Millions, excuse me. You see, that's my point right there. So
365 million gallons right now going north.
So my point is, we joke about it and laugh about it, but without that mentality, this doesn't get done.
Right. With these two guys, and Gordy, of course, comes from a construction background, You know, the information that they know and they pursue way above my pay grade. These guys keep track of the flows in and what's going out, and of course Reggie and Gordy in coordination. You know, we decide when we're going to close these floodgates and when's the low tide. You know, well, the best time to close it is when the low tide is, so you got more capacity inside the system. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to this, and it's not just, you know, with all these different floodgates, the best thing in the world would have been to have sector gates. You know what the problem with sector gates was? They're easy to operate. Mm-hmm. They're fantastic. They're about 5 times the cost of these barge gates, and so we didn't have the option. Otherwise, we'd have all these canals still open at this point, and that's how we closed them, with barge gates, but also understanding that they're difficult to operate, and they take a lot longer to close and open.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Yeah, I want to ask Gordy something about you now, because you got to talk about them. And really, this is a 2-year anniversary item, but it's also a factual check on what some people think and what gets circulated. Tony doesn't take a check. He's on this board, and he gives up a lot of time. I'm sure he could be doing a lot of other things, but he sort of put his life to it because I think he realizes, and everybody realizes, and everybody behind the camera over here, Angela and Trey and everybody else realize it's about the kids coming up that are going to be running the parish and living here, and if we don't do something, they're gone. So I wanted to say that, your thoughts.
More, 20 years ago, 19 and a half years ago, I nominated Tony and Governor Kathleen Blanco appointed him. And then General came along and appointed him and after I nominated him, and then John Bell Edwards. And I always joke with everyone, and I call him the General George Patton of this levee system, because he was the driver of it. And you remember, we started this almost 20 years ago. And the Corps is just stepping up with some money after 20 years. Now imagine all these hurricanes hitting us with nothing. You'd have nothing here. And remember, the Corps is going to be a long time. The first thing they do is Humble Gate. So they build 2 hills of mud on each side, and they're going to let it sit for 2 years before they build the gate. Yeah. That's the Corps, okay? So we still not waiting on the Corps. Tony and Reggie and them are going to 15 feet with all these levees. Most of them are 12 and a half, 13. Now they're going to 15 feet with all the levees. The floodgate's at 18 feet. So we're still not waiting on the Corps. We are moving forward with everything, just like the 2 big pump stations I just built in Bob Black and Gibson, Elliott Jones and Hanson. You realize the Corps under the Mississippi River Tributaries report 35 years ago said you needed them pumps and never built them. Now imagine if I would still be waiting on the Corps. Bob Black, the Chackahoola Gibson would still be underwater like when I took office. Mm-hmm. They had tiger booms stopping water from people from water going in people's yard and houses, and I mean, we welcome the Corps. We're glad they're here, but we're still not waiting on them because they are the Army. They're very, very slow, but they do a great job, and they got a lot of money. When they can get money from Congress. Right now, they don't have enough money to finish this system, but there was allocated enough money, but you still got to go get it in Washington.
I still remember vividly, camera on my shoulder for Hurricane Juan, 85, and that was my first hurricane, covering it, and the storms that have come through since. I remember water rolling in this parish. I remember, when Tropical Storm Bill broke the levee in Montague.
2003.
Yeah. I remember the Lily Isidore. I remember we had Katrina, and then a week later,
Rita.
Yeah, we got Rita coming through. Me and you still laugh and joke a little bit. You said, no, it was 9/11 surge, and I said, no, it was 10. Can we call a truce on this now? Because we're talking about 1 inch. But that was 180 miles away from Terrebonne Parish.
That's right.
And I think that was the realization that these storms that are so massive, look what's happening right now on this anniversary going to Florida.
That's right.
And look what's happening in Lake Charles with Laura. And Gordy brought it up. Terrebonne Parish is sitting right now as the icon of levee protection. And people say in the Gulf South, no, not only the Gulf South, I'm talking about the whole nation.
Right.
Other people are looking at us now to say, how the heck did y'all do this? So there's a lot of history, but Gordy hit the nail on the head. Remember Hurricane Rita, how many homes were flooded?
Yeah, 11,000 homes flooded for Rita.
And then
For a storm that made
storm.
landfall at the Texas-Louisiana border.
Right. And look at the last storm. And look at Barry.
Barry, 11. It was just, it was a levee in Lafourche Parish that was under construction. It was just a spall bank, not really a levee. And that's why you did have the 11 homes, 3 in Terrebonne and 8 in Lafourche that flooded in Pontchartrain. But, you know, one thing I'd like to bring up, Martin, 20 years ago, Gordy got elected as state representative, and I was the sitting senator, got reelected also. And that was a couple of factions on the old levee board, and he nominated and Governor Blanco appointed Tony. So Tony was the rookie on the board, but then we were trying to make everybody pull in the same direction. So Gordy calls me up one morning, one of them, you know, 6 o'clock calls, and says, I got an idea. He says, why don't we push to get Tony Alford as the new board president? I said, man, I'm in, let's do it. That was 19 and a half years ago, and because in his persistence is why we are here today. So the vision and persistence, you know, back in 2005, he says we ought to build it on our own. Of course, at the time, we still, some people in this parish were still thinking the federal government, a big brother, was still going to save us. But after the 07 Word of Bill, and the court told us they had to put us in a major federal study called the PAC report, that's when the whole game changed, and this guy went to work, bringing together the congressional delegation, the state delegation, the parish, and the chamber, and SCIA, everybody pulling the same direction. We need to start building this thing on our own. And we had the quarter-cent sale tax, we had some dollars, but we kept building and building. Then we ended up passing a second tax at a 72% margin. And that's why we so well protected today. You know, and
the first tax failed, which could have been a blessing.
Yeah.
When you look at it.
Well, the tax that failed in 06 was, the first tax was 01, it passed by a quarter cent. The second tax was a 1 cent that failed after Katrina and Rita, but none of that 1 cent would have went to the Morganza system. It would have all went to the interim levees. You'd have had beautiful parish levees, but you still would have had water coming in all the way near Houma on Lake Boudreaux, and all the way up close to Houma on this channel. So yes, it would have been a blessing. However, you wouldn't have stopped the water this far south, and you would have been having all this degradation of the wetlands and everything in the system. But the other thing I want to mention about vision, we're going to bid on phase 2 of this lock. Phase 1 is done. Phase 1, we built 150 acres of wetlands in this area with the dredging. The operations center is right here, and but that vision started 11 years ago, when then State Representative Gordon Dove was on CPRA. He saw an opportunity with the BP oil spill dollars to bring it right here, bring the bacon right here home to Terrebonne Parish and build the biggest project built from the BP oil spill money was this lock. And here it is, we're going to bid on phase 2. Phase 3 will come a little later when they retrofit the existing barge and existing floodgate. But we, you know, so here, because of the vision in the past, and this guy is such a salesman, he convinced the state senator 14 and a half years ago to resign. I mean, that was, at first I told him, you've lost your mind? But, you know, but anyway, it's been a very good team effort, and I think we're seeing the results. And now, hopefully, we are preparing for the next younger generation to take this over.
Let me make another point that I can remember back in 84 again, riding around with Donald Landry around the parish, dead cypress trees all over, and it was just starting to hit. But they were dying, you could tell they were dying. Some of them were dead already. Maybe a year ago, we were out here hanging the cameras, all this lush green is lusher than it was a year ago.
It was. It is.
It's growing at a rapid rate.
And after a drought, we just went through a 6-week drought, you know, and it's still green. And go on Bayou Sally Road, which is now all on the inside of the system, you go see some of them old cypress trees and some of the old oak trees starting to have a rebirth. I mean, that's amazing. I thought they were all gone, but a few of them are coming back because we've changed the salinity and the hydrology of this whole area.
You know, I was joking with Tony, and this is the joke, but it's the serious fact. I said, right up the road I live on the Intracoastal, I said, so a couple of years I won't be able to catch redfish or trout off my dock. That is the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I hear that a bunch. It's hard to bring things back sort of like they were,
Right.
because you've got a lot of, you know, catching speckled trout and redfish in here and all that. And I mean, that kind of, you know, that's the effect.
Yeah.
You know, the cause, you turn everything fresh again. And, you know, with this lock that's coming in place, this thing's going to get greener, because that fresh water, instead of just flushing through the parish, is going to hit this lock. It's going to spread throughout the tributaries, and it's going to make everything even greener. In addition to that, there's commerce that comes along with this.
Right. Yeah.
We could never dredge this navigational canal. Now, because we'll be stopping the saltwater intrusion, we'll be able to bring more commerce into Houma. Mm-hmm. You know what really sparks you more than anything? Well, you know, when I became president of the levee board, after Rita and Katrina, after Rita flooded all those homes, when you go down the bayous, when you're able to, after the flood resides, when you go out there and you start talking to people that you know, and they're crying and they got mud to the sealants. If that doesn't spark you, you know, what sparked you before was that you live here and you want your kids to be able to grow up here and your grandchildren. But when you see that, everything else goes out the window. You're going to figure out how to get it done. And that's, I think, what sparked everybody here, is to see that happen in our parish. And have control to maybe not have that ever happen again.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. After Hurricane Andrew, we saw people wading in water after it went down to about their neck. They were in their houses with shovels, shoveling the mud out so they could resume their life.
Nothing, you know, I'll tell you this, there was a lot of crying going on, and the three of us were some of those people crying. When people are approaching you and crying and asking you to help them, and you can't help them. Mm-hmm. If you ever have any control, you want to be able to stop that from ever happening again.
Yeah. Let me ask Gordy. We can't help but you know, nobody ever talks about the economic impact of building all this. When you look at people who are working on these projects, it's all people who live around this area. Sure, they don't do it for free. It costs a lot of money to put these pipes in the ground, in the water, and do a lot of things. It's massive construction. But at the end of the day, a lot of the monies that it takes to build these are spent back in the community, so the economic impact, the car dealerships, houses, grocery stores, buildings, we got to talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, Boyd, the biggest economic engine in Terrebonne Parish, we're standing in it, the Houma Navigation Canal, here at the Bubba Dub floodgate. Now, we're going to have a signing ceremony in about a week with the Corps of Engineers to deepen this from 15-foot navigable to 20-foot navigable, meaning 24 feet. And that will bring a lot of larger vessels in, more jobs, more economic impact. But we couldn't have built that. The Corps would not let us build that unless we could control the salt water through this lock system that's going under bid. So they're willing to do a signing ceremony. In fact, Steve Scalise will be here, John Kennedy and Garrett Graves and maybe Bill Cassidy. And so that is a byproduct of building this lock system, which I'm holding right here. this $300 million lock system. And remember something else. I was on your show the other day showing the Barrier Islands. You realize in the last 5 years, we pumped 20 million cubic yards of ship shoal sand on Whiskey Island, Trinity, and Timberlake Island that we really didn't discuss a lot because we're so busy doing pump stations, levees, and floodgates. But meanwhile, you know, as a parish, we've hit our Barrier Islands harder than anybody can imagine. That was a good show that we had on your show that we you know. And remember, more that's besides doing roads and bridges and overlays and everything else and internal drainage. And I mean, it's just a testament to the people in Terrebonne Parish, the taxes they pay, the millages they pay. And look, I mean, you can look, you know, levees are self-mitigating. And look inside there, that used to be open water back over there. And it's just amazing, and it's just getting better. And, you know, we've kept the population, I think, it's unbelievable, you know, the little bit of population we lost in Terrebonne with all the hurricanes we've had. Without this system, I agree with Reggie, you'd have lost 35% more of the population. So we were able to sustain that, and meanwhile sustain the oil field here. You know, the heliport is the largest heliport in the United States of people. Yeah. Do you know we're second in moving people to New Orleans International because of the helicopters? Because the helicopters considered a takeoff and a landing. So that's what all this has brought is, you know, a lot of economy, you know, economics of Terrebonne is really in good shape. Look at our budget. Our budget's going up, and because we do more projects.
Yeah. Let me ask, you know, Reggie, when we talk about the flaps, everybody calls them the flaps. I don't know what the official word is, but the little tunnel pipes with the flaps on it to let the waters go through. You know, something seems so simple. If you're an engineer, probably go, yeah, that's pretty simple stuff. But everything is magnified when you get to these things because of the force of water.
Right.
You can't just put a straw in there with a little cover on it. It's got to withhold the force of that water.
So this floodgate, the Bubba Dove floodgate, the largest in our system, broke loose and pushed back about 80 to 100 feet, as Parish President Dove said. We had $9 million of damage on this. There's no flaps on this gate. The lock will act as the big relief valve. Now compare this to Cocodrie floodgate, it's also known as Bayou Petit Caillou floodgate. There are a number of, I think it's 4 big pipes through it with flap gates. Now, although you did have almost 10 foot of water inside, and the outside, because of that 180, 170 mile an hour winds, pushed the water to a -5 outside. There was no water left south of here. The water all took off. So you had over a 14-foot reverse head in Cocodrie at that floodgate, and no structural failure. Yes, we lost a lot of the pumps because of the 9.5 foot water that came on top. It went underwater, but there was no structural failure. It didn't break loose. What's the difference? In my opinion, is the flaps, by relieving the pressure. So now we're going to bid right now on a hazardous mitigation project to put additional flaps in the flood walls on each side of that floodgate in Cocodrie and on the road gate, so that when the water rises for a reverse head, and the models are showing instead of 10 feet, it would reduce it in half to 5, which is, you know, that's the difference between water in people's yards down there and water maybe in their structures.
It's the difference between boats being pushed over the street.
That's right. Or boats being pushed on top of our levees, you know.
Yeah.
So,
as we look back, taking a lot of y'all time, and I know it's a little hot, so I don't want y'all to pass out on the floodgate. But you know, as we look back, I think about the big deal that was made when 11B was built, and we had big press conference, and I sort of gauge it from '85 on, all the little things that were done. When Jim Ernie had a press conference on first money's coming through for flood control in the area, and when I look at it now, I'm going, it took all these seeds to get here. Yeah. But my God, this has been I think unless you're standing on this floodgate like we're standing, drone shots don't do it any justice, camera shots don't do it any justice. You got to see panoramically what these things are all about, and they're massive. Just the magnitude is unbelievable.
Yeah, and the seed that was first planted is after Senator Leonard Jobert realized that we needed comprehensive flood control. And the following year, he created the South Terrebonne Tidewater District. Later, it was made in the parish-wide Terrebonne Levee District. And then built a couple of floodgates, which the parish president converted to locks in the last couple of years.
I think Governor Evans gave him $10 million for
That's
that?
right.
Yeah. A lot of money back then, but it wouldn't touch a pole today, would it?
All right.
Yeah. Let me let y'all each close with a comment, and appreciate y'all being with us.
Well, so there's been a lot of people, Martin, involved with this, all the way from the beginning. Like you said, a lot of seeds planted along the way, a lot of people involved. You can't even name them all. And it's been a process, and I think, we finally had enough with that process, and we got, contacts on a state level because of Reggie and Gordy, and got them to match us dollar for dollar, and then we were off to the races to build this project.
Natural Resources Committee.
Yeah,
Right
that's
here.
right.
Chairman.
Yeah,
That's right.
both sides.
And so we took it and we ran with it. We built it to the best of our abilities, to core criteria. It'd have been easier just to go put dirt up on the, just dredge it and throw it up on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we knew we wanted to be careful with the tax dollars. We wanted those tax dollars to go towards our match. So we had to build it to core criteria, which I think was a good move anyway. And so these levees are built to core criteria. And as we top them, we still have that in mind on how to build it. When you get the people from Washington to come in and see, Gordy and Reggie and Angela put a bunch of slides together, Trey, and when they walk into that civic center and they see all the projects, the pump stations, the levees, the floodgates, all the things that have taken place, they're floored. You could see it in their face, and you could hear it in their voices when they talk to us. Mm-hmm. And so this thing was done to core criteria. I'm glad we did it like we did it. We had some learning situations as we went, but this is the best thing we ever could have done. When a storm comes and we're operating the next day, everybody's going to school or going to work the next day. That's what we always said we'd love to do, just like Lafourche was doing it one time, right? And so now we're doing that. And we still have a lot of work to do. Yeah. I would say in closing, still take heed to what the warnings, when they say to evacuate. Mm-hmm. This is a work in progress. We've made a lot of headway, but we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Duff?
And more, bring out one thing on Ida, probably the most important thing we've talked about is there was nobody died from Ida, caused by Ida. What a great saying, and nobody died from it. Of course, water kills, wind kills. Yeah. There's so many people to thank for us to get here. We got a great state delegation. We got a great congressional delegation. Tony Alford lead the levee board with Reggie Dupre. We got a great group of levee commissioners. And remember this, in 2006, under Kathleen Blanco after Katrina Rita, we did learn another thing. We went ahead and passed legislation for a comprehensive building code. We built to the international building codes. And we would have lost a lot more structures had we not done that in 2006, because it was built below the intercoastal at 150 miles an hour, above the intercoastal at 143. And that is a testament that was done on a state level, and of course all parishes had to follow it. And you would have lost commercial and residential, a lot of structures without it. So that was a good thing done back then, and I think it saved a lot of homes. And with this levee system, and like I say, Terrebonne Parish, besides drainage and digging ditches and lateral ditches and all the pump stations we've built, we've almost doubled the capacity of pumping in Terrebonne Parish, that we can take not only a rain, but take a heavy rain. Our goal is to get, if we do get a 15, 20, 25-inch rain, we hope to be able to pump it out, because Houston's had it, Carolina's had it, Florida had it, and a lot of communities are getting these 15 to 25-inch rains, and we're prepared for it. And we still have a few pump stations to go, but we've We built 30 of them, and look, and I want to say my hats off to my staff and my department head. Without that, Terrebonne Parish couldn't have done what they did in the last 7.5 years. And as you know, all the pump stations have backup generators, so if we lose electricity, you know, you're covered.
Reggie?
I just want to close by mentioning, I guess, what I call the unsung heroes. You know, the guys who spend the nights on these floodgates and operate them, Greg Gautreau and his staff, the operations director of the levee district, they spent countless hours. You know, this is a massive system, 14 floodgates and about 85 of these environmental sluice gates that all have to be closed when you have a tropical system. When you do it, and all of that in 24 hours, that's close to a miracle. So they've got it down pat. And Greg is, and we've taken his knowledge and put it in our emergency plan. But these are the, you know, the operations division of the levee district and public works at the parish government. That's who's really out there turning the valves and you know, and doing and operating all these systems for us. So I want to thank y'all very much. I think this has been a fantastic thing we've done here in this parish, and we just need to keep moving forward.
And I know you got a few people behind us over here that prepared all these and continue to prepare. And I know Angela and Trey and everybody else do a great job. So you're right. There's a lot of people behind the scenes, and also thanks to the people for putting faith.
That's right.
Putting faith in you. They're there to give you all the taxes.
Confidence.
Yeah. All right.